welcome to Fair's Fair, and we actually do have a bit of backstory on this one. Way long ago, in the far-off year of 2018, there was a video released by Dorkly called Manga's Most Bizarre Trope Has a Dark Secret. And I'd like to talk about this video because what's in it is, well, kinda stupid. Don't get me wrong, and I will preface this entire thing on the fact that I do enjoy Dorkly's content sometimes, and their animated shorts are almost always very entertaining. But this particular video rubbed me the wrong way, so I'd like to go over why with all of you. Don't get me wrong, there's plenty of dark secrets in manga and anime. There's plenty of dark secrets in media in general. And there's plenty of really shitty representations of anime out there. The glorified 12-episode commercials used to advertise various gacha games and/or video games and/or dating simulators is definitely one of the things I would mention because they never make any kind of committal to any kind of relationship or building of character for the actual characters, and it's really just them trying to rub cute girls in your face to get you to buy the original product. What were we talking about? Oh, right, the video. Let's jump right into that.
Time after time, manga and anime creators have one-upped each other, escalating the arms race
that will one day destroy us all.
First of all, super edgy, love it. Second of all, manga? I'm not normally the one to correct. If you pronounce it manga, that's how you want to pronounce it. That's perfectly fine. I might throw out a correction every now and then, but I'm not going to go out of my way to point out every time that you say it, except in this particular case where he's claiming to be an authority on knowledge about this. He's claiming to have researched it, so allow me to offer a little bit of education for the rest of you. It is in fact pronounced manga. Ma-ng-ga. Call me crazy, but I feel like if you're going to be talking about something or claim that you have researched something, you should at least be able to pronounce the name of it properly.
The weapons here aren't of the ballistic variety, they're girls. Or rather, things that are not girls that
Let me go ahead and skip the synopsis. Essentially, you are using anime girls to represent things, objects, or animals. And/or having sentient things, objects, or animals, sometimes represented as actual girls. But I'm sure he has examples, so let's go into his examples.
Echo to Isho stars a boy named Hiroshi, who finds a strange, broken flip phone on the street. After taking his magic garbage to the shop for repairs, Hiroshi soon receives a large package in the mail. Instead of a replacement phone, it's a replacement girl. A girl that is also a cell phone. A girl that is now Hiroshi's cell phone. The term objectification gets thrown around a lot, but in this case, the cell phone character is literally an object. She exists solely for her master, constantly pleading with Hiroshi to use her features. She doesn't even have a name until Hiroshi deigns to call her Echo. A predictable courtship plot ensues, but the romance isn't between a boy and a girl. It's between a boy and his property. Alright,
this isn't exactly unique to anime. There are plenty of representations of humanoid or actually human possessions in other series, whether it comes from manga, anime, or children's cartoons. Having sapient objects owned by someone else is a rather morally questionable trope that exists everywhere, not just in anime and manga. Dave the Barbarian had a sentient sword that was his property. The more recent puppet show that they've launched, that the name of which I've completely forgotten and don't care about. The main character wields a sapient axe that has its own preferences, self-conscious issues, and is the property of a barbarian. All of Tony Stark's AI might as well be sapient beings. Jarvis even got upgraded to full-on vision. They are Tony Stark's property. All of the droids in Star Wars are sapient beings that were addressed in the worst possible way in the Solo movie, but they are still property. Didn't America make an entire movie where a guy fell in love with some support AI or whatever? Just because Japan has personified them as more relatable, people-looking things doesn't make it morally worse. The idea that the moral questionability of it is dependent on how cute girl-like they are is a terrible metric to go by.
This is at least just a one-off thing, right? The whole ownership deal?
Oh, sorry, but Echo isn't what you'd call unique in anime and manga.
Ma-ng-ga. Imagine if someone was telling you they know a whole lot about beef products and they kept pronouncing it filet mignon. How much would you trust their knowledge on the subject? And no, I'm not going to nitpick if you have one or two minor issues pronouncing something, or if you trip over your own tongue once or twice. That's perfectly fine, but he consistently does this the whole video. He doesn't know how to pronounce it.
In fact, it kind of plays out like a ripoff of the popular Tropes, which centers on a boy who finds a girl who happens to be a personal computer.
Ah, Chobits. Gee, I hope someone has made a review of that recently about, the storyline so that I can make references to it. This was not pre-planned at all. But allow me to step in here. Did you actually read or watch Chobits at all? What the actual fuck are you talking about? Because if it did in fact take inspiration from Chobits, then the point of it as well is that they were treated as more than a piece of property. The person acquired them as property, but slowly began to realize they were more than that. The entire point of Chobits was that they weren't property, should not be treated as property, and deserved love and equality as they were. You have rather amazingly managed to reference something while completely whiffing over the point, in that it means the complete opposite of what you're talking about. And I'm reasonably certain that the all-female writing team of Clamp that made Chobits would probably agree that you've misrepresented them here. Truly a manga expert.
Lots of anime get away with having their cheesecake and eating it too. A recent scene in My Hero Academia poked fun at the typical shameless hot springs episode, only to then indulge in the fan service cliche with a lingering shot of girls frolicking in the water. I hate that. Great baby.
Ah yes, only Japan sexualizes characters in their shows. Only them. Just them. But you're talking about that character always made out to be an asshole, right? The one violently punished anytime he does something? You might actually be missing the point, in that no one likes these people, and he's an asshole. Though you have accidentally stumbled upon an actual good point of a trope that is bad in anime. That is, the relentless forcing of fanservice-y beach episodes and hot spring episodes. Completely unnecessary most of the time, and completely against the theme. I know sex sells, but it'd be really nice if we could just stay on theme and topic sometimes.
Moe anthropomorphism allows readers to indulge in guilty pleasures under the pretense of comedy. It's an empty, self-assuring excuse that sits alongside, read Playboy for the articles, or, honey, I swear these big boob dinosaurs ladies on my screen are part of my research for a video for work, it's fine.
Ah yes, the Horse Girl anime, which I haven't actually seen, but I know for an absolute fact, the man who tries to abuse the Moe girl by being creepy with her was immediately kicked in the face across the room and is made out to be a terrible and deplorable person. I can see how this totally supports the point you're trying to make. This is right up there with people claiming that they had to change Scar because there was too much Nazi reference in the original Be Prepared musical that he sang in the first Lion King, so they had to change him for the live action. You're missing the point. He's the bad guy. He's supposed to seem like an asshole. If someone is being portrayed as a jerk or as a lecherous person, then that's the point of it. And if they are being regularly abused because they're being a lecherous person, then the anime is not advocating those actions. Frankly, seeing people doing creepy things getting justly punished is something I'd like to see more of in shows. How many times did Barney from How I Met Your Mother do something that was just utterly deplorable, but he never really got any comeuppance for being a womanizing asshole? Meanwhile, in anime, these people are regularly abused, thrown out windows, punched in the face, even if what they did was a complete accident. In fact, a running joke in some moe genres is that the male characters are constantly assumed to be a lecherous person, regardless of whether or not they've ever actually shown any evidence of them being one.
Goes for Hotomo no Naka no Ai. The main character is a salaryman in his mid-30s who has an existential crisis when a schoolgirl starts appearing in his eye. For the most part, the story is about a man being annoyed by a girl only he can see and hear. At one point, he even brings out eyedroppers in an effort to flush her out. Over time, he grows fond of his secret eye booger, and they develop something resembling a father-daughter relationship, and he names her Ai. The corny pun belies the revelation that, like Hiroshi and his cell phone girl, the salaryman is tasked with naming his floater because he is Ai's possessor, her master. Ai is beholden to the man she is trapped inside, and the manga treats this horrific sentence like a fun, fantastical twist of fate. You might have noticed a pattern by now. When moe anthropomorphism transforms girls into objects, there's always a dopey shithead who claims ownership over that object.
Alright, lots of points. Let's go through them. 1. She is beholden to him because that's how the situation is, not through any action that he actually did. He even tried to murder her with the intent of just not being responsible for her. 2. Naming someone does not make you their master. They need to have a name, and I would argue that calling them it would be considerably worse than an actual name. And even you admit that he takes on a fatherly role, not a masterful role. If in your eyes a father-child relationship represents master and servant, then you need to work on your own daddy issues instead of projecting them on this manga. And you have referred to all of these people as dopey shitheads. Do you have any examples of them acting as dopey shitheads? I wouldn't define the character from Tropes as that. Forgive me if I don't take your manga expert on his word for this.
Oh, don't blame Hiroshi. A magical cell phone girl just showed up at his doorstep. Oh, it's not the salaryman's fault he woke up with a magical girl inside his eyeball. Oh, someone drew a guy who owns a subservient microwave lady, and I can't think of anyone that could possibly be to blame for this.
Somebody must be blamed.
I have never once before seen someone so confidently bring up a counter to such massive parts of their argument, insist that someone must be to blame for it, and then never address it or why you're right. Seriously, watch their video. Don't take my cut up version as proof. Watch their video, watch the whole thing, it's 10 minutes long. They brought up a counter to their own argument in a mocking tone, and then promptly didn't address why it was wrong. Because it isn't.
But Midori Days managed to graduate to a full-fledged anime. In the first episode, a punk student named Seiji wakes up with a miniature girl named Midori fused to his body where his right hand should be. As it so happens, Midori was previously a classmate that pined for Seiji from afar, and she's overjoyed to be so close to her crush. Seiji is understandably mortified, like anyone else might be, but because this is a romance anime, the pair eventually grow close. Seiji now has his own pocket girlfriend, one that he keeps a secret from the rest of the world. Midori now belongs to him.
Okay, again, but he didn't choose this, and like you said, he's mortified. He doesn't want this. He is the victim here. Why are you painting this like he's somehow the master and god of this situation, just because they grew to love each other later? In fact, you could argue that he only grew to love her because he didn't have a choice. He can't have a normal relationship anymore. Those options are out the window. His only option for relationship is the person who is now physically attached to his arm, and one of the first things he did in that story was attempt to bring her back to her actual body and get her removed. Because she is, again, a parasite that is possessing his body whether he wants her to or not. And through his own greater morals, he has decided not to remove her via more extreme means. Which is something that someone put under that kind of incredible stress, without morals, might even do.
It's fun in the manga and anime because Midori has been super into Seiji from the start, but even a simple tweak to the premise corrupts the tone. What if Midori didn't like or didn't know who Seiji was? Suddenly the idea of being grafted to his arm is less of a flight of fancy and more of a horror story. These manga mask their use of tropes with coincidence and acts of God, because without them, they are exposed as abominable creep fests.
What kind of fucking argument is that? Yes, if you change the premise, characters, and theme, it is a different thing. How far are you having to reach for this one? They mask their intents with coincidence. Well, yeah, because there's no logical explanation as to how someone would become magically grafted to his hand. The point of the story is how they cope, not how they ended up there. So yeah, coincidence is a cheap way to get out of writing an actual believable reason why something happened. Because if you write a believable reason why something happened, or indeed made it apparent to the audience or the characters, there would be no reason for those characters not to be actively seeking a solution to it. She's magically grafted to his hand. He doesn't know magic, doesn't understand magic, and doesn't know a solution for magic, therefore he's stuck with it. If he did know magic, or there was some kind of super powerful science machine behind it, then he would have a venue through which he would be trying to get her removed, and the entire story would have no reason not to focus on him doing exactly that. They didn't want the story to focus on that because they didn't want to focus on that, and they probably couldn't think of a way to write that out properly.
It's fitting that the most naked use of this trope would come from hentai.
I'm going to skip this entire section because he's relying on porn. it's really, really not a good sign that porn is one of your examples of a trope in something else. This is a stupid idea for an argument. You're talking about manga and anime, not the pornography industry. If we're counting the pornography industry in amongst it, then live-action shows have a terrible, terrible trope of believing that women home alone are using sexual favors in order to pay for delivery services. Therefore, we should go against all live-action content because they dare to promote the idea that women fuck everyone who comes to their house in order to get out of paying for things. No, that's ridiculous. Women who have things come to their house get out of paying for them by complaining to the corporation that owns them and insisting that they did something wrong. This would also inherently assume that most step-siblings, at any opportunity, will immediately have sex with one another. This is not true. This is obviously not true. If you're relying on pornography to make your point about a general assertion across an entire medium, then you've already made a stupid argument. So I'm skipping this entire part because none of it actually matters.
The purest form of pocket girlfriend doesn't even have a shred of an independent thought. Instead, their entire universe revolves around the one dipshit in their life. The owner-object dynamic is baked into the premise, and somehow that makes it more palatable.
But it's not totality of control. The vast majority of them feature people having to accept these as not a possession, but rather another person. They begin to care about what this person wants, they try their best to accommodate this person. In fact, their life seems to turn and start to revolve around the person that has been unwillingly forced into their life in most cases, or through some choice of their own, been acquired into their life. How could you possibly state that the entire reality revolves around them if the entirety of their life changes to revolve more around this other person? Surely you have some examples of that actually happening.
In fact, the only thing that I could think of that would be more degrading is like if the man actually inhabited the body of the woman, so she didn't have to have any interiority at all.
Ooh, that one's real. It's called I Am My Wife, where a guy wakes up 10 years in the past, inside the body of a girl who goes to the same school as his younger self.
You know what? I'm gonna actually hand this one to you. I haven't read it, but I did read the synopsis, and the entire thing seems to be standing on incredibly shaky moral ground on a variety of different issues. What you've done is you've taken a whole bunch of individual points and examples from several shows and combined them to draw a very weak conclusion, regardless of the fact that very few of these shows share two or much less all of your examples or any comparable form of them. And the idea that this is a solely one-sided thing is ridiculous. What about Reincarnated as a Sword, where a guy becomes the possession of some girl as her sword? They end up having to work together in that. How about Tsukaima of Zero, where he is summoned as a familiar and literally her property, but eventually grows to love her? That man is relentlessly abused. I've never seen something that I buy less. Often, the guys are very uncomfortable with the idea that they are in any way owning this property. Bottom line, the fact that you couldn't pronounce manga, or at least didn't care to, the fact that you brought up Chobits, which has the exact opposite theme, and the fact that you blatantly ignored the massive, overwhelming inconvenience this meant for the main characters and how they had to change their lives to accommodate their new parasitic existence that has been forced upon them, and maybe we're just identifying and forming a relationship with them out of Stockholm Syndrome, kinda makes me think that you didn't actually research this. Top it off with the fact that this doesn't relate exclusively to manga and anime really made me upset, because this was not an accurate representation of most of these series, it was not an accurate representation of manga and anime, and most importantly, you used pornography as your example of a medium, which is the worst possible example you could use for any medium. But I'd really like to know what all of you guys think. Do you believe that he was right about manga and anime? Do you believe that this is an overly prevalent trope? Do you believe that there are more that fit the description he was talking about than there are those that, don't? And if so, why didn't he use any of the ones that fit his description better in the actual video? Like, comment, follow, subscribe, all things to help me with the algorithm, and if you didn't agree with me, I'd be happy to talk about it in the comments. But if not, at least be entertainingly angry.